Sup, Captain Gender here. The 2020 Comic Con was just last week, and this year's Eisner Awards winners were just announced. All of this got me thinking about a series that has been nominated to 14 Eisner Awards and won 12 of those nominations. I'm talking about none other than Saga, a comic book series written by Brian K. Vaughan and illustrated by Fiona Staples. There are so many reasons I would recommend you all to read Saga, and amongst one of them is that it has really good inclusion. So, without further delay, let's talk gender and comics. Saga is set in a world divided by the war between Landfall, which is the largest planet in the galaxy, and Grid, which is Landfall's only natural satellite. After years of direct war, the highly technological wings of Landfall and the magical horns of Grid decided to stop destroying their homes and recur to proxy wars. Thus, they forced other planets to choose a side and made a whole mess. It is in the middle of this war that, against all odds, Alana of Landfall and Marco of Grid fall in love and have a baby named Hazel. But the entire galaxy wants them dead, because their child pretty much goes against everything that the war represents. By this point, you're probably thinking Saga is just another Romeo and Juliet-esque story of forbidden love, but it is way more than that. The comic has often been described as Star Wars meets Game of Thrones, and it makes sense. The story has all the sci-fi, interstellar travel, and crazy species of the former, while including all the struggle for power, sex, and death of beloved characters of the latter. Saga is actually a mix of a whole lot of things, while managing to create something refreshing and stay true to itself. I could probably go on for hours explaining why I love everything about Saga, from the peculiarities of each of its species to the character development that allows each and every person to have their own intriguing story. However, I am sure you are able to find videos that explain those other points. Hence, I'll be including only those reasons that I considered are relevant with the theme of this channel. From this moment on, there might be some minor spoilers, but nothing that would really ruin the main story series for you all. So, let's get to it. Saga's characters are really diverse, and they're all written in a really compelling fashion that comes across as natural. Vaughan makes sure to give character development to as many of his characters as he can, which results in each one of them being genuine, almost as if they were alive and telling their own story. A really important thing when it comes to writing diverse characters is that you have to make sure you depict them as actual people that do normal stuff, like everyone else does. Just like Leila Sturgis, who is the co-author of Jack of Fables, said at the Body Talk conference at this year's Comic Con. People don't sit around having traumas all day. And I think Saga is really true to that. When a diverse character is included, there are many things that make that character interesting, not just that they belong to a specific demographic. Saga is a story of a couple fighting against the world because their love is seen as unnatural and incorrect. Doesn't that sound much like what happens to LGBTQIA plus couples? At the very core of this comic is a message of love, and it is truly wholesome to see that Vaughan doesn't stop at heterosexual couples but extends its validation to the LGBTQIA plus community. Perhaps one of the best things about homosexual relationships in this comic is that they are depicted as naturally as heterosexual ones. Of course, in a story depicting many different civilizations, it makes sense that homosexuality is tolerated at different rates in different parts of the galaxy. However, most relationships in Saga don't really suffer the negative consequences of this, and the one civilization that engages in homophobia is seen as backwards. And this type of discrimination is actually depicted as an evil obstacle, which actually says a lot to our in real life situation. Likewise, a trans character is introduced, and she's great! Her gender is validated by other people, and in general, she's a really well written, complex character who builds relationship with others without being seen as just a fetish. Probably one of the most wholesome things is the moment when a kid finds out this character is trans and is totally accepting of this. Kids are actually pretty okay with these kind of things if they grow up in a good environment with positive representation. Saga has a lot of great female characters, and each one of them has her own way to be strong. Sure, there are moments when they need help, just like any other person. However, there's not a single female character who cannot take care of herself to a certain degree, unless she's, well, a baby. For the most part, the comic got rid of a lot of hurtful tropes that minimize women to objects. If you did the sexy lamp test on this comic, everything would come falling down because the female characters actually do stuff and aren't just tough on paper. There's more to female characters than their looks, and male characters actively acknowledge that. I'll try to tackle this issue with sensitivity, because I know it could be potentially triggering for some of you. I'll also add a timestamp so you can skip this part, if you decide to. Until Saga, I had never read about abortion in a comic book. And yeah, Image Comics isn't part of the big two, but it is most certainly not underground. And it's really important to have these important conversations out there. In general, Saga is not afraid to get political and have conversations in a really serious manner. The same is true for other topics such as war and pacifism. Many people might frown at this because they see comics as a way of escapism from all of the mess in our reality. But let me break it to you. Comics have always been a medium to speak up about the injustices surrounding the world at each of the writer's time. When it comes to abortion, in the comic, there's a whole planet dedicated to carrying out this procedure in a safe manner. There are two conflicts that take place there. The least physical of the two is a disagreement between two characters. One of them puts the whole abortion issue into perspective. She makes it clear that pregnant people should have the right to abort, regardless of the reason they are doing so. It is important to note that even if this character has kids, she knows others might choose not to follow that same path, and they have the right to do so, which is pretty much what being pro choice is all about. I could go on listing reasons why Saga is great, but I'd rather not waste any more of the time you could be using to start reading it. But before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. This is all for this week. See you next time. Gap Gender out!